You're watching BCTV. We're all about Branford. You're watching BCTV, Branford Government Television, a service of Branford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Branford.
Okay, well, we will get started. Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Inland Wetlands and Watercourse Commission of Branford. Today is Thursday, June 26, 2025. The time is now 7:02. Please note that this meeting is being held remotely via Zoom in accordance with Public Act 22-3, and all speakers will be required to identify their name and title each time they speak. Materials related to the agenda items can be found on the agency's webpage or via the drop box in the agenda. My name is Commissioner Boda, and I will be chairing the meeting tonight in Chairman Basserman's absence. I'd like to remind everyone that the Commission's purview is Connecticut General Statutes 22A through -36 through 22A-45, as well as the Inland Wetland and Watercourse regulations of the town of Branford. And all matters before the commission must pertain to those regulations. And with that being said, I'd like to start with our number 2 on our list, which is our roll call. So we have Commissioner Begeman.
Commissioner Begeman present.
Commissioner Glukowski.
Commissioner Goklowski present.
Commissioner Mirsky.
Commissioner Mirsky present.
And are there any other commissioners present who I have not called? And I'm Commissioner Boda. I am also present. And staff, Jamie, Frederick.
Present.
And staff, Katie Blanchett.
Present.
Thank you. Next up, we have our minutes for approval, May 22nd, 2025, regular meeting minutes.
Well, this is Commissioner Goklowski. I make a motion to approve the minutes as recorded from the May 22nd, 2025 meeting.
This is Commissioner Begeman. I'll second.
Okay, we have Katie, you good? We have a first, we have a second.
Proceed.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? And I will abstain. Okay, moving right on.
In the wetland agent, just noting for the record that Melissa Papatonis has joined the meeting.
Okay.
So, sorry, I just got home. It was late.
We're happy that you're here. Better late than never. Okay, we are on item number 4. We're next up is application for review, Inland Wetland 250501, 8 Orchard Ave. Jamie, would you set the scene for us, please?
Jamie Frederick, Inland Wetland agent. So the commission received a presentation at the last meeting. We've received some revised materials since then, and the applicant is present to kind of walk over those changes, walk through those changes. And I did prepare a staff report with some possible conditions for consideration. I think one of the bigger changes is that the width of the bridge was reduced slightly in response to some of the concerns regarding excavation in the width of the land area adjacent to the pond. So I guess I would hand it over to the applicant to kind of run through those changes, and then we can run through the staff report.
Okay, and this is Commissioner Boda. Jamie, can you clarify for us where we are in the timeline for this application?
Yeah, so the application is in the review phase, and the commission has until July 11th to make a decision without any continuances. So if the commission felt that more information was warranted, you could continue it to the next meeting, which is July 10th.
Thank you. And who do we have here this evening for 8 Orchard Ave?
We've got Paul Muniz, and if you want me to share anything, Mr. Muniz, just let me know what documents you want to share from the file.
Thank you. My name is Paul Muniz. I'm the Vice President of the Hotchkiss Grove Shore District. I'm also the Chairman of the Town of Branford Solid Waste Management Commission. I'm representing the Shore District in this case, and I appreciate your time. This is our second appearance in front of the Commission. At the previous meeting, which was approximately a month ago, we presented design drawings to support an application for approval to replace a failing bridge on a privately owned road. The responsibility for maintenance or replacement is held by the Hotchkiss Grove Shore District, which is a tax district and a duly established political subdivision within the state. In advance of that meeting, a month ago, we received staff comments. We responded in writing to all of the staff comments, and we received comments from the engineering department. We responded in writing to all of those engineering department comments. As the wetlands agent pointed out, in addition to providing responses, which are commented on in the staff report prepared for this meeting, we have made minor modifications to the design. And as the wetlands agent pointed out, we've reduced the width of the replacement bridge, which would be located within a approximately 15-foot wide roadway, from 14 feet down to 12 feet to provide additional unexcavated area on the pond side or the east side of privately owned Orchard Avenue. In addition, the concern was proximity of the proposed construction to Talmadge's ice pond. In addition to narrowing the width of the proposed bridge replacement, we have also narrowed the width of the bridge abutments to be installed by excavation, also serving as foundations, for the bridge on, be the next slide. We've narrowed, on the right-hand side, we've narrowed the width of the abutment on the south side of the bridge and tapered it so that the separation distance to the existing town-owned sanitary sewer line is increased. The separation distance is increased by reducing the size of the abutment. It's a stamped plan by the civil engineer attesting to the validity of the smaller abutment to support the load of the proposed replacement bridge deck. The town, any questions on that so far? There was also a comment that we responded to in writing from the engineering department expressing concern about, if you go to the next slide, expressing concern about the depth of the base of that southern abutment relative to the burial depth of the sanitary sewer line, which in this image would be to the left of that foundation pour. The initial written response was that we would identify the depth of the sanitary sewer line, the burial depth of the sanitary sewer line when construction started. The town engineer this week asked for a test pit to be installed in advance of construction. We've arranged for a test pit to be installed, but we've suggested to the town engineer that test pit should be installed as the first activity of construction, so that any instability caused by the test pit, the duration of that instability is reduced in duration by having construction proceed directly after the test pit is installed to confirm the burial depth of the pipe. In an email that we received Tuesday, the 24th of June, proposing that duration and sequence be bundled together, the town engineer indicated that seems reasonable to me and something we would do on the town side to minimize surprises during construction. So we're prepared to do a test pit. We're prepared to do it directly in advance of construction. We also measured the invert elevations of the sanitary sewer line from the location where the bridge will be constructed. Actually, Ms. Frederick, maybe, go back to here. So we measured the invert elevations from the center of Orchard Avenue where there's a manhole, and along the burial depth of the sanitary sewer to find out the actual burial depth, because temporary traffic modification will be made along this driveway that you can see the outline of the driveway through the property owner of the bridge and their neighbor driveway to provide access back to Route 146 during what's anticipated to be a 2-week construction period. We proposed placing road plates where the sanitary sewer burial depth is as shallow as, I believe, 1.5 feet. I could look on my drawing and tell you the exact value, or you can try blowing that up, zooming in. So the top of frame in the middle of the road is at elevation 6.52, and the top of the pipe is only 5.2. So there's 1.3 feet of burial depth for a town sanitary sewer down somebody's driveway. We're going to be adding 3 houses worth of passenger cars down that driveway for 2 weeks. We will agree to install road plates beyond the dimensions shown in this site plan to include the distance back to the next, I believe it is the next manhole that the town has requested the road plate placement be extended to. So notwithstanding any additional comments or conditions that the wetland agent would bring up tonight, the engineering department concerns have been accommodated and addressed through our commitment to extend the dimension of the road plated area down a private driveway that'll provide temporary access for residents during construction. And we do intend to install a test pit, ideally by vacuum extraction methods. So with a vacuum truck to remove the overlying soil as opposed to shoveling it out with a backhoe. This is much safer and more protective of buried utilities. If we can excavate the entire abutment trench south of the proposed bridge by vacuum extraction methods, we'll do that and drop the reinforcing steel into that trench for construction of the foundation. If stabilization of the sanitary sewer line is necessary based on the observations made during the test pit, conventional stabilization methods, bracing with an overlying or adjacent weight-bearing block to strap the braced pipe to would be performed. It's a pretty conventional method when utility piping is exposed within a trench, as would be the case here. I can answer any questions or respond to any additional conditions that the wetlands agent may have added in the most recent staff report from this week. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Muniz.
Good evening, Mr. Muniz. Commissioner Goklowski here. My question is, and I'm sure you're going to have a good response for me because you've been very detail oriented on this whole thing. But my concern is reducing the size of the width of the crossing of the bridge. That's a pretty dramatic change. I mean, the fire apparatus has got to be wider than 12 feet.
Now, the town fire apparatus.
Excuse me, this is acting chair Boda. I just want to make sure that we're staying connected to wetland issues and we're not impeding into planning and zoning issues.
It does directly involve the inland wetlands issues because the road is abutting the wetlands, but there's also a safety feature involved too.
This is applicant Muniz. The town fire apparatus we believe to be a maximum of 10 feet outside to outside on the tires and axles. The roadway at 12 feet is adequate for up to a 12-foot vehicle. The road is 15 feet wide. The bridge will end up being 12 feet. The potential failure of the bridge is it's a very serious safety question, which is why we're taking the action to replace it. We can only get 5 pounds in a 5-pound bag, so okay. The width of the the width of the road and the width of the bridge will be consistent with the current conditions.
Okay, thank you.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. I just want to point out that Commissioner Myasin has joined the meeting and shall be seated.
Thank you, Jamie. Are there do other commissioners have questions for the applicant or based on the staff report? Do you want to look at the staff report?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. We received the application fee. The only disturbance within a wetland / watercourse is the replacement of the bridge deck spanning the watercourse. Did not require a wetland delineation. That was overviewed at the last meeting, given that the edge of the pond and watercourse are pretty self-evident in this particular case. We did receive an updated site plan since the last meeting, which we've kind of touched base on. Regional Water Authority and adjacent municipality notices were not applicable for this application. Back in 2019, there was another application submitted, which was ultimately withdrawn, went back to the drawing board to assess what the actual needs were. And we have the application that we have now. Erosion controls. I left kind of the language I had in here originally and
Amy,
supplemented it.
This is Commissioner Boda. Can you stop for a second? Was the issue of water drawdown addressed?
So the
Discussed.
applicant indicated that there was no intention to do a water drawdown.
Okay. Thank you.
So kind of along those lines, I left a lot of the initial language in here and then in italics kind of added some of the response language that was received since the last meeting. So in erosion controls, we did receive some updated information both on the site plan and in a written comment response. So one thing I will jump over and point out real quick is that the one adjustment that I noted is that the erosion controls on the southeast side should be extended along the edge of Orchard Ave, essentially to where the edge of the water course is, just to make sure that any runoff coming off of the roadway is captured by those or filtered through those erosion controls prior to entering the water course. That was something that the applicant indicated in his written response, but didn't make it onto the site plan. So I do have possible condition language for the commission to consider in that regard. There's no detail provided for the installation of the erosion controls. So I did also suggest a possible condition of basically just saying that all erosion controls shall be installed compliant with the Connecticut erosion and sedimentation control guidelines. We've already discussed that the width was reduced from 14 feet to 12 feet, which gives them a little bit more space to put erosion controls along the pond side of construction. The staging area is shown and has some hay bales proposed as erosion controls. Also, the staging area will be on pavement, so hopefully there shouldn't be too much disturbance there. Let's see. There was some confusion over the remove existing CMU walls, and that has been revised on the site plans. And then we went over the potential conflict with the sewer line and the modifications that were proposed to accommodate that. Stormwater, the plans are revised to show a riprap upslope of the southeast corner of the bridge. So hopping back over here, the water kind of generally sheet flows over Orchard Ave, some of it flowing to the northeast and some of it flowing northwest and some of it southwest. And so there is a little bit of washout in this area. So they're proposing to place 6-inch of crushed stone to form riprap apron in this area, which I think ultimately is going to kind of solve any ongoing issues that might, exacerbate over time. There's not a lot of understory growth there, so it shouldn't really impact things in that regard.
Jamie, Commissioner Begman, I have a question. The 6 inches of crushed stone for riprap, crushed stone is small. Are they putting in larger stones as well? I think of riprap as being bigger, but I may just be wrong.
Mr. Muniz, would you like to clarify?
This is applicant Muniz. I think what we should have written on the plan was we were going to use riprap no greater than 6 inches on any dimension. So it's pretty decent size.
Mhm. So this is Commissioner Bona, just clarifying. So you're saying that the size of the stone is 6 inches, not the. You're not talking about a depth.
No, the rocks. We're not going to excavate anything in the area where stormwater runoff jumps the curb, but by placing riprap, which is typically 4 to 6 inches in any dimension, because it's angular, that should be heavy enough to withstand stormwater gutter flow.
Yeah, so the understory vegetation in that area is barberry, so for it to be removed is no sad story. Let's see. Landscaping applicant, so basically there will be some invasives removed to install erosion controls and that riprap that we were just talking about. Some natives may need to be pruned, but no natives would be proposed for removal. Proposed to seed with New England wet mix in any areas that need it. Post construction, which would mostly be along the edge of the roadway. And then the concern was that the original plan didn't show erosion controls on the pond side of the road, which has been revised. Because the proposed disturbance is less than 750 square feet, no mitigation is required. The project is to restore an existing condition, so it doesn't really come into play. And prudent and feasible alternative analysis is not required unless the agency makes a finding that the proposed activity may have a significant impact, or the agency requests the analysis be submitted. That was not requested at the last meeting. And it's been represented that the proposal is to replace the existing crossing for safe access purposes. Town engineer provided comments via email May 22nd and June 10th. Possible conditions for consideration include a pre-construction meeting prior to any clearing, initial erosion control inspection prior to any land disturbance, and a final inspection. 2 erosion and sedimentation control measures along the southern boundary of the watercourse shall be extended in a northwesterly direction along Orchard Ave to the satisfaction of the duly authorized agent to ensure adequate protection of the watercourse during construction activities as outlined in the correspondence from Paul Muniz dated May 30th, 2025.
Can I just interrupt? This is applicant Muniz. I think that direction reference should be southwest, but the drawing is not orange. The north is to the left, kind of. So, we go back.
So I was thinking it should be extended along northwest from where the erosion controls and.
I've got my directions all screwed up here. So the original layout of the hay bales west of the bridge kind of followed the southern boundary of the watercourse, those little necklace looking thing. But then we tweaked it so that it goes more towards the south to pick up runoff from Orchard Ave. Which runoff are we do we want the hay bales to, wouldn't we want the hay bales to be more tweaked back towards the bridge? So that the runoff goes into the woods, or do we want to go along the necklace and along the curb of Orchard? Just
So
have it be L-shaped. That would probably be better.
you mean if it were to follow the bank like it does on the other side and then curve up?
Yeah, and then just flatten out so it's like an upside down J or something. Because
Yeah,
that way
so
we're
that meets
preventing
that
runoff
meets the
from
same intent of
road.
what my condition is getting at, but
I mean, if you're going to come out for an inspection, we'll put them wherever you want. But I would think we'd want to keep the runoff from going into
yeah, I think
the.
we're looking at it two different ways, but we're looking at the same thing. Or you're looking at it from one direction,
Yeah,
and I'm looking. So when I say northwesterly, I mean northwesterly from here. So it could be like a 7, or it could be like that J that you're talking about.
yeah.
So let me go back. We could just get rid of and say shall be extended along, or get rid of in a northwesterly direction and say along Orchard Ave to the satisfaction of the commission.
Yeah, along Orchard Ave and the southern
And
boundary
then
of
that
the
would be
watercourse.
part
Yeah,
of
that
the
makes sense.
pre-construction
Yep.
meeting confirming where that's going to be.
Yep. Okay.
This is Commissioner Goklowski. I'm just a little confused. I thought Mr. Muniz was the actual applicant for the Hotchkiss Grove Association. Where are the applicant owners, Kathleen and Parker Fox? Why haven't we heard from them?
This is applicant Muniz. So
Well, technically, Mr. Muniz, you're not the applicant because you're not the property owner.
We are the applicant because the Hotchkiss Grove Shore District is responsible for maintaining private roads within the dimensions of the district. And the road is a private road that is present on private property. So within Hotchkiss Grove, we have private roads. But then in this case, we also have a private road.
Okay.
But our establishment, our charter says private roads. It doesn't distinguish between private roads and private roads.
Okay.
So
because I'm looking at the statement from what Jamie has drawn up for possible review. Did not mention Hotchkiss Grove. That's why I was a little confused, and I'm looking at it. And I didn't know who the Foxes were.
Yeah,
so
this is applicant news. The Foxes are getting a free bridge.
Yeah, so the applicant is Hotchkiss Grove Shore District, and the owners of where the activity is being proposed are the Foxes. So they signed off as owner authorization, but the applicant is in fact Hotchkiss Grove.
I just want to thank you.
So I think we can clear everything up here by striking the in a northerly direction along and just say extend it along or extend along Orchard Ave.
Yep.
And if the commission wanted, you can say as reviewed at the pre-construction meeting.
Yep.
3, given the close proximity I threw in for consideration, 3 as a bond shall be submitted to the agency prior to construction to ensure erosion controls are installed and maintained until the site is stable. Permit holder is to submit an estimate of the cost to bond these items to the IW agent for the agent's review and approval. After approval by the agent, the bond is to be submitted consistent with section 13 of the regulations prior to start of work. 4, I touched on before, erosion sedimentation control measures shall be installed in accordance with the Connecticut guidelines for soil erosion and sedimentation control. 5, if the anticipated seed germination period exceeds 1 month, more durable temporary control measures such as installation of filter socks shall be installed downslope of areas designated for seeding. 6, comments provided by the town engineer in email dated June 10th, 2025 shall be addressed throughout the construction process to ensure protection of the water course and wetland resources through preventing any short or long-term impacts to the sanitary sewer system. That's where we're talking about the road plates and the test pit, and the load relative to the sewer line. 7, construction activities shall be conducted during dry weather conditions when no precipitation is forecast, and if possible during periods of low pond water levels. I mean, we could change when no precipitation is forecast to when minimal if you want, given that it is a 2-week period.
I don't know if this is applicable. I don't know if we've had a no precipitation forecast in 25, but
I mean, want to be realist, probably minimal is a more appropriate word than no. And then the standard conditions and general provisions of all permits, and general standard language for expiration date when zoning and planning approval is issued under such and such chapters expires, or 10 years, whichever is earlier, if no zoning/planning approvals are required after 5 years. So it would be valid to 5 years from date of issuance. Any questions or things the commission wants to review?
Commissioner Begman, Jamie, I noticed you're not changing the language as we go. And
yeah, this is a PDF. I could pull up the Word document though if we wanted to do that.
It's okay. And in terms of changing the site plan drawing to reflect what we talked about in terms of the riprap and the placement of hay bales, does that become a condition, or does that just become something that you approve, or what do we do with that?
So if you wanted to rework the condition, you could require that a revised plan showing it be submitted prior to start of work. So that way there's, clearly an agreed upon intent, rather than standing out in the field and thinking we understand each other. And I think for the riprap, I think the place 6-inch riprap apron in this area, I think makes, I think I see how the crushed stone part makes it confusing, because crushed stone, you think more like 2 to 3 inch or 3/4 inch. But I think focusing on the 6-inch riprap apron makes sense. So if the commission wants that changed, that's something else that you could add. Then you could, change condition 3 to say erosion controls shall be revised along Orchard Ave and detail for riprap apron clarified prior to start of work, as an alternative.
Commissioner Begeman, do you have a preference?
Who are you asking?
Commissioner Begeman, I think changing it on the site plan is important. If people use site plans when they're out there in the field, which is the idea, I think that should be changed, and I think it could be submitted to the duly authorized agent before start of work. That's what I think.
This is Commissioner Boda. I tend to agree. I think it's helpful for everyone involved to have the plans documented so that we're clear, particularly as conversations don't always translate to the contractors who are in the field.
This is applicant Muniz. I don't disagree.
Commissioner Boda, are there other issues, questions, things to be brought up with the staff report or otherwise?
This Commissioner Begman, it's just one question. When the town engineer on the June 10 letter said that they would do a test pit on the town side to avoid any surprises or something like that, does that mean that they're doing one as well? I should have asked that earlier.
This is applicant Muniz. I interpreted that to mean on a town project, they would have done the same thing.
Okay. Thank you.
Me, Frederick, and the Wetland Legion. That was my interpretation as well.
Yeah.
Okay, this is Commissioner Boda. If there are no other questions or discussions, what next steps would the commission like to take? Are we ready to make a motion? Do we need additional information?
This is Commissioner Begman. I think we're ready to make a motion, and I will try to do that, but I'm going to need help with the wording, I think. So this is Commissioner Begman. I make a motion that we approve Inland Wetlands 250501, 8 Orchard Avenue, the replacement of a privately owned bridge. And Jamie, if you can put the stuff up there, the staff report. Thank you. In accordance with the staff report revised 6/23/2025, with the additional change that where are we going to put the change in the site plan? Is that a new condition?
I think it would be replacing condition 2.
Okay. So we will change condition 2 to say that erosion and sediment control measures will be put in place according to a revised site plan that will be approved by the duly authorized agent prior to the start of work. And that will include the wording, the placement of the hay bales along on the eastern side, the change that we discussed in the meeting, and also the rewording regarding the riprap, that it'll be worded to say place 6-inch stone riprap apron. And other conditions remain the same, 1 through 6, if there aren't any below. 7, 1 through 7, and the standard conditions and general provisions of all permits, and the expiration date of the permit that's in the staff report.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion?
This is Commissioner Gokowski. I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Are there questions about the motion itself? Okay, hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Begeman?
Commissioner Begman, aye.
Commissioner Glukowski?
Commissioner Gokowski, aye.
Commissioner Mirsky?
Mirsky, aye.
Commissioner Papantonis?
Commissioner Papantonis, aye.
Commissioner Meinson?
Commissioner Meinson, aye.
And Commissioner Boda, aye. Motion carries. So, Mr. Muniz, you will continue to connect with Jamie and the office. And I think that takes care of that item for this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Thank you all very much for your time. I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay.
Commissioner Begman, just a technical question. Were all the commissioners here for all the meetings? And if they weren't, do they have to say that they've reviewed all the material in the minutes to be able?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. They don't necessarily have to because it wasn't a public hearing application.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
But it's not required specifically because it's not a public hearing.
Thank you. I'll be in touch.
And this is Commissioner Boda. I'll just, while we're on that sort of administrative work. Hi, Commissioner Mirsky. We haven't met before, but hello. And hi. And for the other commissioners who know that I tend to talk a bunch, when I'm in the chair position, I will talk significantly less and I do not make motions. So I will leave that all to y'all. My job is just to referee. So enjoy. Okay, so moving on to enforcements. We have notice of violation, A71 Midwood Road. Jamie, would you intro this for us, please?
Sure. Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. So I had a conversation a couple years ago with the property owner about wetlands and jurisdiction, because they were doing a little bit of cleanup activity, nothing significant, so to speak, but enough of concern to say, hey, let's talk about what you're doing and what's regulated by the agency. And then recently, apparently it was last year. Recently, it came to my attention that some more activity was going on. And then namely, it came to my attention that there was cutting of Phragmites. I got concerned, okay, what's next? So I sent the notice of violation, immediately heard back from the property owner. They told me why they were cutting the Phragmites. They were concerned that a new pipe had been installed, perhaps discharging water onto their property. They said they don't have any intention of maintaining the cut Phragmites or any other activity in the wetland. I think that they have a slightly better understanding of what is regulated and or that they should ask before doing any other activities in the wetland. I did meet with the property owner shortly after the notice of violation was issued to kind of go over everything in general. And then I was talking briefly with the property owner again today in advance of this meeting. And I understand the property owner has hired a wetland scientist to delineate the wetland on her property. And I think just get a better understanding of the wetland and the wetland review process. So going in the right direction, definitely trying to understand and be aware. And I didn't do a follow-up inspection because, at this point, it kind of is what it is in my mind. Phragmites will do its thing and regrow. So, it's not like it's a long-term impact. The property owner did tell me when we were talking earlier today that it, in fact, has already started to regrow, which I don't find surprising at all. So my main concern really at this point is just making sure the property owner is aware, knows to come before the commission and or, reach out to staff before starting any projects within 100 feet of the wetland. Property owner is here in case you have any questions regarding the activity. If you want more of a overview than what I gave in the brief presentation intro that I provided. Essentially, what you're seeing here is there's a drainage pipe that outlets to a wetland complex, which I believe probably comes tidal as it gets closer to Long Island Sound. But on the northern end, which we're at, it is inland. So these are some photos from various points in time. But here's the cut Phragmites, nothing extremely significant. Ground disturbance is minimal. So I think it's mostly, like I said, making sure the property owner is aware moving forward.
Amy, this is
Any-
Commissioner Bodo. Can you just go back up those like construction fence?
Yeah, so there's a private dispute which doesn't really have anything to do with the commission, and my understanding is that that's kind of a visual of where the property line is. So that was from 2023, it looks like, and then this is the fence that's there now. It's not towed in or anything, so there's still some like critters could go underneath it. I basically advised once this dispute's over, it should be removed. And if they want to put in a permanent fence, that would be an application process.
And this is Commissioner Bodo again. What is the material of that new fence or line? Is that like silt fence plastic? What is that?
It's similar, I would say. Ms. Esposito, do you know what the material of that fence is? Oh, you're on mute.
You're muted.
So
just be sure to state your name for the record and address.
Okay, Lorena Esposito, 71 Midwood. I'm not sure what it's made of. It definitely lets airflow through. It's just more of a privacy blocking thing, and definitely critters go in and out.
Okay, thank you. Just this is Commissioner Bodo. That construction plastic it has a tendency to get things that are migrating through tangled in it, and or things that are hatching out get caught up in it, and they can't get out. So that construction fence, I'm glad to see it's gone.
Yeah, just for clarification, it is gone, and it's replaced with this, which I think is a cross between like a plastic and a fabric, if I remember correctly.
This is Commissioner Murski. I'm sorry, Commissioner Bodo, are you about to speak?
No, I was just going to ask if people had questions.
That's okay. I appreciate, Jamie, the history. Just for clarification from me, is the intention that Ms. Esposito is going to engage with the soil scientist and that we are going to have another meeting regarding that update? I know you indicated that there has been progress and in the understanding of how to treat how to interact with the land that is near the wetlands. I just wanted to clarify in terms of the next steps for the commission.
Sure, Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. So it would be my recommendation at this point that as long as the commission is satisfied that the notice of violation be closed out, kind of with the expectation that we're likely to get an application potentially in the future for additional activities. You can kind of see over here, there's some knotweed, and I believe the property owner is looking to, in the future, manage that knotweed. So just making sure, there might be a permit or there might be a jurisdictional ruling request. So that will be a conversation we have as the property owner decides what she wants to.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Murski, for that question. Does anybody else on the commission have questions? Ms. Esposito, was there anything else that you wanted to share tonight?
Just that I'm grateful that you guys donate so much of your time and energy to make sure we're all protecting this environment. I didn't say my name first. Sorry. Lorraine Esposito. Sorry.
Commissioner Boda, it's a hard habit to pick up.
Okay. Yeah.
Great. This is Commissioner Boda. With that, then thank you, Ms. Esposito, for joining us tonight at our regularly scheduled meeting. Glad for your sake that you were up early and you can enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Enforcement B, cease and correct 240701-157 Beacon Hill. Vegetation removal and earth disturbance within wetland and adjacent upland area. All right, so Jamie, will you start us off?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. Let me just first check if The representative is present. They mentioned they might be running late. We did just have a phone number join us. Is anyone here specifically for Beacon Hill / is Doug Anderson on the call?
George Logan, for the record, is on the call.
So I had talked with Doug and I mentioned we could table this item if he wasn't here. Does the commission want to table it to later in the meeting or move forward with the soil scientist? I do think that it would be beneficial to have potentially both individuals present.
This is Commissioner Boda. I mean, we have other items, so we could send it to the bottom of the enforcements and see if that gives either the property owner or, did you say engineer? Did you say Doug Anderson?
Yeah.
Yeah. Time to get here.
Okay.
Mr. Logan, are you here for something else also?
This is George Logan. Yes, I am for probably your next item.
Okay. So, yeah.
It-
Although, yeah. That item's getting tabled.
Oh. Mr. Logan just likes to hang out at our meetings. That's what I've decided that he's decided to hang out at our meetings now.
And George Logan, for the record, and I'm on vacation, if I might say so, too.
Oh, no.
But not too far away. So,
All right. So do you want to table it to the end of the Enforcement Act section? Or do you want to?
Why don't we, this is Commissioner Boda, why don't we move it to after item D?
Okay.
And then that way, I think that'll be better. Because I suspect D is going to take us a few minutes and
Okay.
otherwise we can. Does anybody object to moving it to after item D?
No.
Okay, Commissioner Glukowski, you wanted to say something?
I wanted to ask a question. Do we have to vote on closing out that notice of violation on 71 Midwood Road?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent for notice of violation, general consensus is sufficient.
Okay.
Okay, this is Commissioner Boda. We're moving on with item C, which is cease and correct 250502 175 Cherry Hill. C422 Hosley Road, C511, and 167 Cherry Hill Road. Failure of erosion and sediment control measures in association within site development show cause hearing.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, I received a request from one of the parties to table the item to the July 10th meeting. I sent an email out to the group. I hope George Logan was on it, but maybe he wasn't. Confirming that the item would be tabled and picked up at the June 10th meeting.
All right, so we'll table that.
This is Commissioner Begeman. Somebody's been out there to make sure there's nothing worse is happening.
I am going out periodically, and I was out at the latest yesterday or the day before. One of the days that was like 100+ degrees.
Thank you.
So I'm in communication.
Okay, this is Commissioner Boda. We are moving on to item D, cease and correct 250501, 329 East Main, failure of erosion and sedimentation control measures in association with site development.
All right, Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. So just a quick recap. The cease and correct order was primarily issued in response to concerns of stormwater bypassing the inlet protection in the existing catch basins on site and going through the curb line inlet and basically discharging to the water course untreated minus the whatever treatment the temp or hydrodynamic separators on site were able to provide. So there have been some site improvements that they.
Jamie, I'm sorry to interrupt. Kind of. This is Commissioner Bodo. Would you just, for memory's sake, and before you talk about the failure of erosion and sediment control, could you just remind us of what the treatment train was supposed to be? Can you pull up the site plan?
Sure, I can, or we do have the project engineer with us if you want to have him.
Is that Mr. Schmitz?
Through it. I have partial site plans. It is partial site plans from the application, but I think it includes all of the pages that we'd find relevant to today. Essentially, the stormwater management was to have storm or erosion control management plan was to have perimeter silt fence, inlet protection in the catch basins, and basically have the stormwater discharge through the existing stormwater system and migrate over to the proposed stormwater system as the new system was installed. Very high level. So I pull up the erosion control plan. And then as part of that, the application material said that asphalt or pavement should remain in place for as long as possible, to the extent possible. And essentially that kind of became, well, we need to pull up all of the pavements so that we can do foundation improvements and utility work, which kind of, I think, helped drive the situation that we ended up in. So there has been curb line inlet protection installed via implementation of placing sandbags, and so
again, just on the site plan. This is Commissioner Bodo. Just on the site plan here, how was the water supposed to flow during construction? And perhaps if you want to hand that to Mr. Schmidt, that would be okay. I just, before we get into what went wrong, I think it would be really helpful to have a very, very clear picture of what was approved.
Sure. So would you like me to answer that, Jamie?
I'd be happy to let you answer that.
So again, my name is John Schmitz. I'm a civil engineer with BL Companies, 355 Research Parkway in Meriden. So the plan that's in front of you now is the erosion control plan. As you may recall, this site's was already developed previously as a movie theater, and around the movie theater was a parking lot. So the majority of the site was paved as a parking lot. Obviously, there were some end cap islands interspersed in the parking lot. And as such, the parking lot had existing catch basins. There was an existing collection system in place to handle stormwater from the development. And there were 3 discharge locations, one on the northeast corner closer to the signalized intersection, up in that area. And then there were 2 separate in the south end, one at the southeast corner there, and then a third one a little farther to the west right there. And so what we did in the design was to try to maintain those 3 outlet points. Water's flowing under existing conditions, water's flowing to those 3 points. So under the proposed condition, we're trying to mimic that. Again, there's already outlets there, so we didn't want to create any new outlets to discharge stormwater. So what that meant was that we had to retain as much of the existing drainage system as we could and utilize that to maintain those 3 outlets. And so in the proposed design, we were trying to, again, tie into the existing pipe, keep what we could, save what we could, and then just use those for outlets. So some of the catch basins that were there before are still there. They still accept runoff. Contractors also installed some new catch basins to accept water. They have removed the pavement, and so that's of note because typically water would run on the pavement and run into a catch basin. Without the pavement there, it's the grade is a little lower than the top of frame, so all those catch basins stick up out of the ground by a few inches. And then again, without the pavement, a lot of the runoff that might run off is now actually just soaking right into the ground because the pavement isn't there anymore. So without the pavement, there's actually less runoff now than before the pavement was removed. So yeah, but to the treatment train question before, I think Jamie did a good job of explaining it. We have perimeter silt fence around the entire disturbed portion of the property, and then we also have inlet protection in the form of silt sacks as well as hay bales, and then in a lot of instances we also have sandbags that were installed on the curb inlet side so that water didn't bypass the silt sacks. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, thank you. And then this is Commissioner Boda. So then, Jamie, with that high-level overview, can you then clarify how did we end up with the cease and correct and the show cause hearing?
So okay, so here you can see the sandbags have been installed. Let's jump back to some of the older photos. So here you can see that, obviously some sediment has made it into the watercourse wetland area. I think to some of the points Smith was saying is water is infiltrating, but also because some of those catch basins are elevated higher than grade, I think more water was kind of potentially flowing to the edges of the site. And then when the curb line inlet didn't have inlet protection. So this was the start of trying to address it with some straw wattles. When the water was ponding over here, it would overtop the main inlet and go through the rear curb line inlet, and then discharge out to the system. This is a separate issue from when there was an emergency repair that the gas utility had to do. I reached out to them. Some silt fence was installed. I'm not entirely sure who installed what, but silt fence was installed, and since then it was seeded, and we now have vegetation throughout this entire area. So this is from back when the cease and correct order was issued. So we had this issue going on, which was allowing some silt to get into the wetland. We had the stone on top of or maybe that was later. And then in the back, in the two rear outlets, this one and this one, the catch basins, inlet protection was getting bypassed and sediment was getting into the wetland. So that's why I issued the cease and correct order. And then from today's visit, this is coming in from what used to be the entrance to Three Eagle Cinema site. This is where they're currently using as a construction entrance. Some of the stockpiling. I just tried to kind of get a general overview of the site today when I took pictures. So this is one of the catch basins that was of concern. This is that water course area that subject catch basin and one across the access drive discharges to. You can see that there's significant improvement in clarity of the water. So it doesn't appear that there's been ongoing sediment reaching the water course recently since the sandbags have been installed and or since we've gotten slightly less intense rain. Stockpile, another stockpile. This one appears to contain significant amount of the asphalt material from removing the pavement.
Amy, sorry, excuse me. This is Commissioner Boda. Do we have asphalt milling stockpile noted on the site plan?
So the site plan is very generic. It says provide and install temporary materials stockpile with double row silt fence. Materials is not defined.
Thank you.
So this is the two larger stockpiles on site looking to the back. This fence is the wetland's basically right on the other side of that fence. These are the other two catch basins that were problematic in regards to, this other outlet over here. Many things. On this one you can see the sandbags, and this one you kind of can too if you look closely. And this appears to be a concrete washout location. It appears to be abandoned. Should probably have the material removed, and any new ones should maybe be implemented further away from any inlets. This is this catch basin here. So probably just an indication that the silt sack might need to be emptied. Just trying to get a picture of the water course at that kind of corner outlet, if you will, but it's vegetated in, and with that chain link fence, it's really hard to get in there and take a look. So this is the best I got. This is looking up towards Route 1 and Zanes. And then this is the on-ramp for the highway over here on the other side of the wetland. Here you can see the revegetated area disturbed from the gas company's work. General work area on site. Here the silt fence has been repaired. This is the outlet closer to Route 1. Tried to grab a picture. It is clear. Camera didn't focus well. Looking back again towards the rear of the site. Looking towards Walgreens. You can see the start of the foundation for the front building. I think this is one of the disconnected catch basins. I didn't remember to check that when I got back. It doesn't have inlet protection, but I think that one's.
I think that's the one out by Route 1 in front.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think that one's been disconnected.
And then this is where the construction entrance was proposed to be, and I think might shift to as when the renovation of the cinema building starts up. And then looking back into the site, and I think that's it. So that's kind of what the site looks like today. I definitely think the amount of anything discharging to the wetland has at the very least greatly reduced. We do have a report from wetland scientists assessing the impacts. And I know there was a recommendation that the existing hydrodynamic separator systems on site be cleaned out to ensure that they function should there be any additional stormwater that does bypass the erosion controls as kind of, a secondary measure. I'm not sure if that has happened. Do you know, Mr. Smits, if those have been cleaned out yet or not?
I do not. I reached out to the contractor today, actually, to try to determine that. I wasn't able to get a hold of him, so I can't answer that question.
Okay.
Commissioner Bangman, this is a question. Are the stockpiles, do they have double silt fences? And what's the difference between a stockpile and one of those big mounds that doesn't have a silt fence around it?
Good questions. No, the stockpiles do not have a double row of silt fence around them. And there are some smaller stockpiles on site that do not have silt fence around them. I'm a little bit less, like this one's pretty small and it's fairly interior. There are some that are
I think like
Those
the
are more-
white ones there would be, would be similar to that. It'd be a crushed stone product. So there's no,
Yeah.
there's no sediment because it's stone.
This is Commissioner Bergman, but the one right in front of the black one in front of the white one that we just saw.
Yeah, I wasn't on site today. I'm not sure what material that is. And it could be that I see a dump truck there. I don't know if it's recently dumped. I mean, the stockpiles, obviously, the reason why we stockpile materials, we put it there for a temporary period of time. These smaller piles may only be here for a day or two, so it doesn't make sense to put, erosion control around them.
There is also kind of like a stone area lined kind of at the base of this slightly higher elevation prior to the silt fence. So that would provide some capture if there were any material running off down towards that silt fence prior to it getting to the silt fence.
This is Commissioner Boda. Can you go back to the entrance of the movie theater? I think it was closer to the bottom.
Looking which way?
I think it was closer to the bottom, like one of the last images that you showed us.
Oh, the exit from the cinema?
Sure.
When you're following the traffic patterns.
Yeah, there you go. That one. So, the substrate there, is that asphalt millings? Is that?
I think, again, John Schmitz with BL. You can see the sidewalk, the curb. The curb's about 6 inches high. They've already milled off the pavement there. So I think what you're looking at is the sub base, kind of a gravelly,
The remnants.
Right, stone sub base. But I know that Jamie mentioned it earlier that this area will become the anti-tracking apron, the entrance to this development. Currently, they're using the back entrance, so to speak. They're going around the theater to the rear. There's two different projects going on, right? There's a residential project, and then there's the commercial project, which is the theater. That work hasn't started yet. They'll be submitting a building permit in the next month, and the work on the movie theater will start probably in another 2 months or so. And at that time, the construction entrance for the residential will move from the back to this location. So there will be an anti-tracking pad here with 2-inch stone, similar to what you see in the back.
So the asphalt millings that are on site are not being used to backfill.
I'm sorry,
or to level.
I tried to find out. I called the contractor today. I didn't get a hold of him. I did speak to Mr. Vigliotti about it, and he indicated that the material is being stockpiled for future reuse. I don't know that it would be used for backfill. Backfill against the. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
This is Commissioner Boda. It is not considered clean fill.
No.
Asphalt millings are not considered clean fill, and so, I mean, it being stockpiled on site like that, particularly as you've got a breach going into the nearby wetland and water courses, is quite problematic. Knowing that the millings by themselves, the materials that are within them, but also what was on the parking lot prior to it being milled, all of that material. So I'm very curious what is happening with that material.
Right now it's being, I'm sorry.
I go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that right now, my understanding is, speaking with the owner, is that the material is being stockpiled for future reuse, for sub base for the new paving when it comes time to repave the parking lot. So that material will be reused, possibly blended with other material to get the proper specification for that sub base for the new parking. So the intent is that it would be reused on site.
So this is Commissioner Boda. Perhaps we can, and Jamie, perhaps this is something that, well, I guess we need more information about that, because it's one thing for the asphalt to be recycled into future asphalt and reintegrated into future material, but it cannot be used, or it's not considered clean fill by DEP. It hasn't been since 2006. It has heavy metals, PAHs, and heaven knows what else was on the parking lot before you milled it. And so it's one thing for it to be incorporated into future asphalt, which is not as impactful to wetlands as it is in the state where it's millings and smaller sizes. That stuff is quite impactful, negatively impactful to wetlands and water courses. So that wasn't indicated. And so this is a lesson for us as a commission, to be very mindful of quote unquote stockpile of material. We cannot allow that on an application. I will be more mindful of that in the future. So I would appreciate your getting some additional information on specifically what is to happen with those millings. And moreover, knowing that they are, anytime it rains, leaching, and now we're not talking about total suspended solids, but they're leaching out heavy metals, particularly cadmium, which will travel some distance in the soil. We don't know how far in the soil, because that would require significant soil testing. And PAHs and other heavy metals as well. And like I said, who knows what else was already on the parking lot. So we need to know what's going to happen with those. And there certainly should be something more absorbent around them, as I don't know that a silt fence is gonna. The issue isn't necessarily the sediment, the sands and whatnot coming off of a pile like that. It is the leachate itself, which is a problematic.
We can certainly look into that, and I can get back to you with some additional information. I mean, it's just from working in the industry, it's certainly not uncommon to mill, to mill off pavement and save it on site and reuse it. I understand the sensitivity and proximity to the wetlands in this case, so it may be it's a little bit more important given that proximity to the wetlands. But I'll see what I can find with regards to the any testing or anything we may have. I mean, I can tell you that as far as you're talking about the pavement, I mean, the movie theater has been closed for a number of years, and it's basically just been a parking lot. So it's no different than if you walked 100 feet over and you looked at the Walgreens, which was built at the same time. Prior to the milling, it was just a pavement parking lot. There wasn't anything on top of it aside from the paint for the striping.
Well,
it wasn't used to store materials,
right? Because cars, we know cars, all of the cars that are on it, they are all also sloughing off. There's little, again, cadmium is a really big issue. The lead is an issue. There's just stuff that comes off of automobiles that stays on the surface. And those things are persistent. They don't go in, they're heavy metals, they don't go anywhere. So, except for to go into the soil or into our wetlands and water courses. So when we turn things into millings, you're essentially turning them into coffee grounds, and the water runs through those coffee grounds and carries those heavy metals into the soil and into our waterways. So, yeah.
Jamie Frederick, and Wetland Agent. So on that note, the two things I can think of are, could do on-site testing regarding the milling material on-site, because the leachate potential of asphalt millings is very specific to the makeup of the particular material that was milled. And or potentially the property owner could look at covering the pile with like a tarp type material, which would prevent, water from going through the material at a significant rate anyways. I'm sure some would still get in. And that would also have the added benefit of making sure nobody on site took from that stockpile for activities where it was not intended. I don't know how feasible a stockpile that size it is to cover with plastic. I know they do sell really large sheets of plastic, but that's something that could potentially be looked into.
It's certainly not unheard of. I mean, salt stockpiles are covered, piles a lot larger than that get covered on a regular basis.
And then that way, if they are planning on reusing it for the base, they're not moving it offsite and moving it back, which obviously has an impact, in general. So those are my two thoughts on the topic. Not to cut this conversation short, but I do also.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Boda. I do think that's helpful, Jamie. I think it would be helpful for Mr. Schmitz to come back with some potential solutions, as well as just, it would be helpful to know if whatever is in that millings pile, if it's mobilizing. So can do some soil sampling around it. That would be helpful as well. How far is it from the nearest wetland water course?
I would estimate about, yeah, I mean, well, the pictures, I mean, obviously this is schematic, but I think in reality, it's probably 50 feet or so. Along the back there, the wetlands are on the other side of it. Actually, I mean, yeah, I have to check. I mean, because the chain link fence and the guardrail along the back is kind of our limits. But in this case, you can see how the wetlands there is another 50, 60, 70 feet away from the silt fence, but it does vary. So I could, some areas it's closer than other areas, but the stockpile itself is probably 50 feet from the chain link fence and the guide rail.
Okay, and then I guess the second question I would have is, with respect to that or the fifth question I would have is then, where is the water table relative to that? Because if that water table is then connecting to that wetland, that would be the other mode of transport.
Right. I know you use the word mobilization, and that would be the concern.
Yeah. Most of those metals are not going to move super far through the soil, but the cadmium can move. It depends on the soil type, and I don't have enough information about the soil type to know.
I've been taking notes. So, and BL does have an environmental division, environmental group. So I'll be speaking with them in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So we can get you some answers.
They'll have a great time. They'll have fun.
Yeah, they love this stuff.
All right, Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. I do also just want to draw the commission's attention to the wetland scientist report. I'm not sure if everyone got a chance to look at it prior to the meeting. I believe the soil scientist is present this evening if the commission wants to kind of hear a summary of his findings as far as recommendations / assessment and making decisions in that regard.
Is that who's our soil scientist? Is that Mr. Logan?
So yeah, there you go.
Yeah, Sagan Simcoe from BL Companies. I'm the soil scientist and wetland scientist that did the site review. So basically, my recommendations was I was out there on May 23rd, so not too long after the initial issue, and took note of the main location, which was in the northeast, where the stone was placed. Noticed the silt fence was overwhelmed and knocked down, and just made some recommendations to thank you, to repair the silt fence and get the gravel and a little bit of sediment out of the wetland area, which it appears that they did based on Jamie's site visit photos from today. And then I also recommended to make sure the stormwater filters are kept clean and maintained, just to have an extra layer of protection for the wetland. But this was, in my opinion, the largest area of concern that they appear to have rectified. So,
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. So to be clear, the silt fence has been repaired. I'm not sure the material has been removed. I didn't look that close to the silt fence, and there has been more vegetative growth since this picture was taken. I had indicated that any removal of material from the wetland should wait for the commission's authorization as its activity in the wetland.
Yeah, and so again, Sagan Simcoe from BL Companies. Again, a lot of times removing the sediment causes more harm than good, because you're just disturbing it and getting it into the water table or into the surface water there. So a lot of times it's better just to leave it and especially since there's a lot of Phragmites in there, that'll just grow right through it and not notice the gravel and be able to stabilize the area quickly.
Mr. Simcoe, this is Commissioner Boda. Given the talk about, given the material, if you don't think about it from a total suspended solid perspective, but you think about it rather from more of a chemical perspective of what was on the surface of that was being carried with the soils, do you still think it is preferable to leave contaminated soils in a wetland like that, or would it be better to remove them?
Well, I again, you'd have to do testing to be sure, but I wouldn't suspect any of the sediment in this location to be contaminated, because this is not a down gradient of the millings. Like obviously you were having speaking about earlier, it's not down gradient of the milling stockpile, so I would not suspect that this sediment is contaminated in any significant way in that regard. That would, again, just looking at it and seeing how the water would flow across the site. Again, you'd have to do testing to be sure.
Thank you.
This is Commissioner Begeman. And some of those DOC, I think they're called DOC reports, that started in May and they were doing them weekly and they're signed off. It's in the report and they talk about rock up against a silt fence. Is that what we were just talking about? Was that the same? Okay.
Yeah, Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. That's exactly it.
All right. Thank you.
Luckily, it didn't look like any stormwater was overtopping it at any point, but it was a little frustrating how long it took to get it repaired.
This is Commissioner Broda. I was wondering about is the rock That the picture that you showed a minute ago with that inlet and the gravel on top of the silt fence. The intention is for that rock to remain in order to filter out the fines, slow the velocity.
Taking some go from BL companies. Yeah, I think they don't plan to remove it unless Jamie or someone else has heard differently. It certainly will help slow down any water that comes up against the silt fence and filter out any sediment that is in the water.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, it's not permanent. You know, it's just a temporary fix to, like I said, just kind of help with slowing down any velocity and sediment removal. But as construction progresses, at some point things stabilize, the stone would be removed, the silt fence would be removed, towards the end of construction.
Is this Commissioner Boda, is there a reason why you wouldn't have things like those, the silt socks? And just curious about the rocks and what happens after a second, a third, a fourth flush of heavy flush of rain, and the rock's ability to what happens to the fines that are sitting in the rock that just get resuspended.
Yeah, Seiken Simco from BL companies. If that were to become an issue, and you see this a lot, like construction entrances or exits, meant to get the mud off of vehicle tires. Once the stone gets super saturated with soil and sediment, they simply remove it and would replace it with clean stone. Or in this instance, in my opinion, what I would suggest is if the stone really gets sediment laden, to remove the stone and replace it with like a silt sock, maybe like a triple stack of silt sock to really slow down and absorb and actually stop the any sediment laden water to get in there, and which is a lot easier to maintain than the gravel. That would be my opinion.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Boda. I mean, I think the thing I don't know. I feel like I've seen enough construction entrances where those stones are pretty laden that I don't know.
Yeah, again, taking some from BL companies. We've just been having such a wet spring, and with all these sudden storms, that's mainly the issue here. So again, if the rock becomes dirty and it can't, it's basically not doing its job of sifting out the sediment, I would just replace it with silt sock. It would be, in my opinion, more effective. I spoke to the person on site that was here when the gravel was placed, and like John said, it was, it's meant to be temporary, and it was basically and it was an emergency because the silt fence had failed and water was getting, runoff was getting directly into the wetlands. So they had gravel, so they threw the gravel down. They knew that would stop the water and filter out any sediment. So yeah, it's definitely a temporary Band-Aid type of situation that could be replaced with silt sock, which would be more effective.
Amy Frederick and the wetland agent. The site has been regraded in that immediate area since the problem first occurred. So I think the amount of surface flow I don't think there's really water flowing there anymore, which is probably why it took so long for the crews to repair it, because they were probably like, why do we have to repair it? The water's not flowing there. Well, you don't know. Maybe something on site's going to change and the water will start flowing there. So we need to make sure it's in good shape.
That's correct. The surface water, the watershed that goes to that point on the surface is much smaller than it initially was.
Other questions, comments, concerns from the commission?
This is Commissioner Begman. Jamie, it's a cease and correct, but so what stopped?
So at the last meeting where this was considered pretty much nothing. At the last meeting where this was reviewed by the commission, there was discussion about whether all site work had to fully stop or if it could resume. And basically, the commission said if the adjustments were made, such as the installation of the sandbags, that work could resume. So there's kind of been an ongoing dialogue with the applicant or the property owner, project team of what needs to be happening on site, and work has been progressing. It's kind of a fine balance between, making sure things are getting done to protect the wetlands and also trying to make sure that we don't have a site, sitting in an exposed condition longer than it needs to. So there's not been a full stop of work, but they certainly have had hanging over their head that at any point I can say, remember the cease and correct order? I'm not satisfied. You need to stop and do this. So that's kind of where things have been since the sandbags have been installed.
So Commissioner Begman again. So the double layer of silt fences around the stockpiling, is that something that we can say, please do ASAP? I mean,
yeah, the commission wants to push for that. That's absolutely something within your rights because it isn't within the permit materials. I have not pushed for it, but that does not mean that it's not appropriate to do so.
Commissioner Begman, my only thinking is if we don't know what kind of materials are going to be put on in those places, because we learned our lesson, then it seems like if a double layer of silt fences could help the wetlands, then maybe it should be done. But yeah,
I mean, there has been some settlement of material falling off of the piles too, which is starting to stress the silt fence in some locations. So I think that's the reason why you do a double row of silt fence, so that should you have some stretch of the silt fence where you've got some material perhaps leaking through, you've got that second measure already in place. So it sounds like, to summarize right now, the commission's looking for some more information regarding the stockpile, predominantly consisting of asphalt-based materials, to be assessed, maybe look at whether it could be covered, double row of silt fence around the stockpiles, and clarification on what that asphalt remnant material is proposed to be used for, are kind of the main outstanding items. Very high level summary. Does that sound correct, commissioners?
This is Commissioner Begman. What about the testing? Did you say that? Did I not hear you?
I think I did, but yes. Yeah, testing of the asphalt for its potential impacts.
Leachate and adjacent soil.
Does the commission want the soil the minimal soil that entered the water course at the front outlet to be removed, or maybe have it be reassessed and judgment call made based on what the condition is now, given that the vegetation has kind of more established in that location? I'm trying to recall, and I didn't look it up before the meeting. Mr. Smith, do you recall, was there inlet, outfall, like any outfall improvements proposed as part of the application? I don't think there were, but I know it was discussed.
No, I mean, I think all three of the outlets are existing flared ends that under the initial approval when it was installed 30 years ago, I think had some riprap, riprap splash pad or riprap that was installed at the time, but there was no proposal to replace the riprap or supplement it. The idea was we were going to maintain those three outlets and not get into the into those areas to rebuild them, but to maintain them as is.
Okay.
This is Commissioner Boda. I think in terms of removal of the sediment, we could do it in the height of summer, or should wait until November to do that. But I do think it would make sense to remove it, not during sensitive times.
I would just know, I think I don't have the report in front of me, but I think it mentioned that the sediment or the stone that was in there was estimated only to be like 1 or 2 cubic feet. It was not.
It's very
It wasn't
small.
large.
Yeah.
A little hand removal isn't going to hurt anybody.
Right. I was gonna say it wasn't a lot. It was like less than a 5-gallon bucket.
You know, Mr. Simcoe wants to climb down there and dig stuff out.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything for the wetlands.
Yeah, and this is Commissioner Boda again. The comment earlier about it's been a really wet spring. I may be stating the obvious to this crew, but the climate models have this part of the country getting warmer and wetter, and so all plans should assume that we will continue to have more and heavier rains. Period. It's our new now.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Jamie
Frederick.
Yeah.
In the wetland agent, we certainly see if anyone has any more questions, comments. But I also want to make sure the commission's considering the time frame of when you're looking for that information to be available, and maybe have Smith's weigh in on anticipated turnaround time for being able to provide that information, specifically in regards to the testing results.
I mean, for samples, tomorrow's Friday. We probably wouldn't have a inspector out there till next week to grab those samples. Turnaround times, depending on what screens you run, vary between 48 hours and 72 hours, I think. So it kind of depends on the turnaround time. But I mean, certainly, was this a special meeting? I don't know when you meet.
This is a regular meeting. The next meeting's July 10th. Would that be a reasonable time frame?
So,
I mean, there's the holiday.
I was gonna say, even with the holiday, I don't know, I'd have to check with the environmental staff tomorrow morning, but I think that could probably be done to have results by that time. I don't see why that would be. It could be done for the 10th.
And the other thing I would recommend the commission require for the next check-in date is a proof of the hydrodynamic separators being inspected and cleaned out as warranted. Which just gives a little bit of extra confidence that, should there be another breach somewhere, we've got a secondary measure. I do know that this site was routinely maintained prior to construction. This is the one site that this office has received annual maintenance reports for since before I've started working for the town. But I don't know that they've been inspected since construction has started.
Okay. This is Commissioner Boda, so we'll add that in by July 10th. And are we getting reports following rain events?
Yes. Yeah, we're getting them following rain events and every week roughly. Adjust slightly based on when the rain events are.
Okay. And those reports include the inlet, all the inlet protections. Thinking about those wrong. Great. Any more from the commission on this item? Jamie, is there anything else that we're missing?
I do not think so.
Mr. Schmitz, Mr. Sonko, is there anything else you want us to add to your plate?
I don't have anything.
I think we're good. Thank you.
Sure. Excellent. All right. So we're going to go back up to item.
So real quick, this item will be continued. The show cause hearing will be continued to July 10th.
July 10th. Yeah. So we're going to return to item B, cease and correct 240701-157 Beacon Hill. I thought I saw Mr. Anderson.
I believe.
Yep.
Yes.
I'm like that. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So Jamie Frederick, Inland Wetland Agent, just to recap for the commissioners, and I know not all of you necessarily are familiar with this project. The cease and correct order was issued during an application review. Essentially, the commission asked for some wetland area to be, or some part of the site to be investigated as a potential wetland area. And as part of that process, the area ended up getting cleared and it was determined to be wetland. So essentially the concern now is it in an appropriate condition? Does it need to be restored? Kind of the twist with this, if you will, is that a permit was issued, which does authorize activity to be proposed or to be conducted in the area that was impacted. So we have received an inspection report from soil scientist George Logan, and we also have the applicant / permit holder present to give an update of where the project is in the timeline and potential start type time stuff. And ultimately, I'm going to jump the gun and give you what my recommendation will be, so you can kind of think about it in the back of your head and any modifications that you might want to recommend the commission consider moving forward. But essentially, based on the soil scientist report, my recommendation would be that the area continue to be monitored for a period of 5 years, with any recommendations for improvements to include, but not limited to, invasive species management, primarily Phragmites, because there's an existing stand right next to the area that's subject to the cease and correct order, be maintained during that time frame to try and give any native vegetation that has reestablished a better stronghold. Alternatively, if the project starts and they are doing the wetland impact and mitigation work, then this would stop and the permit conditions would start. So that's my recommendation. I can see, I'll share a GIS map real quick. So it was a subdivision. They're proposing to remerge the lots and do a condominium 55 plus development. And the southern end of the northern wetland is what was impacted. So this is the northern wetland as was delineated per the subdivision review. And then the orange line is the approximate limit of clearing, and the blue line is the approximate wetland edge. This being the blue line and this being the orange line, in case those colors are hard to see. So I guess with that said, I would hand it over to George Logan to kind of summarize his findings and his recommendations.
Yes, this is George Logan for the record, Marine Ecological Services. I did submit a report that was dated June 5th. That tells you that I was up. There it is. I'm looking at my other computer screen. Was out there on May 28th. As you recall, May was pretty wet, to say the least, one of our close to record times. So there was evidence that water had left the Phragmites marsh wetland, gone through the disturbed area, the previously disturbed area, and did what it used to do, as we discussed, going over disturbed areas and old, some broken up pavement and entering this is the overflow for the marsh, entering the other wetland, the southern wetland. I did inspect and see that there was no erosion issues based on either within the expanded wetland or downgrade into the southern wetland. And as you can see from the pictures that Jamie will show you, this area is fairly well vegetated, or starting to get fairly well vegetated. For the most part, there's not been much of an encroachment as far as Phragmites, although I expect that will probably happen in the future. There will be some encroachment. And it's kind of a race to who's going to be established here first, the native vegetation that's out there, or the Phragmites. Hopefully the native vegetation is going to be take off quicker and sort of limit the expansion of Phragmites. As you can see, there are some shallowly ponded areas there, probably 2 or 3 inches, sort of the overflow from our wet area. But again, I see no risk at this point of erosion down to the other wetland. It looks like the volunteers, the native vegetation has taken off. As you recall, even though this area was previously disturbed and then redisturbed, just prior to me delineating the wetland, as you remember, Mr. Russo and I redelineated the wetland out there. There was not any material that was removed, the material that was placed in here. So whatever was in the existing soils has sprouted. And so I told you that there was some good vegetation that was coming in here. There was a bunch of sedges identified, blunt broom and crested. The grasses like red top were dominating, and then there's other species that were cattail, smartweeds, water plantain. Duckweed is obviously in the shallow ponded areas, and I expect that even within this past month since I've been there, there's been additional revegetation and that this native vegetation is spreading. So that's what I have to report at this time.
Questions from the commission? Or comments?
Commissioner Begeman, as part of this process, when we talk about monitoring for 5 years, is there talk about invasive management?
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agency. So yeah, as part of the monitoring, invasives would be assessed and recommendations for management provided as appropriate. Typically, when a wetland area is cleared like this, the commission would look for a replanting plan. There, as it was mentioned, there's minimal ground disturbance, so there's an existing seed bank present that has volunteered, and then also kind of knowing that the intent is to go in and further disturb this area, and change it, after they get any additional approvals that would be required. Requiring a planting plan at this phase seems a little
unnecessary.
Yeah. But of course, there's no promise or guarantee that the developer is going to develop the property. The subdivision approval was issued back in 2008 and nothing happened. So that's why I am recommending that the area be monitored and managed for invasives for 5 years. So that way we at least have some guarantee of some management of the area, regardless of how things progress.
Mr. Begeman, sounds good to me.
This is Commissioner Boda. I agree. Anybody else? Two cents?
So, Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, this is a cease and correct order. I think, if that's how the commission wants to proceed, you could make a decision to uphold and modify the order to require that moving forward, which would get it off of the agenda until we get to one of those two bench points where ideally the cease and correct order can be lifted.
This is Commissioner Boda. So it would be to uphold and modify to have it be for 5 years.
Yeah, so jumping back to the original order, they were to contact us, which they did, flag the wetland, which they did. And then the commission will review the violation and may require a restoration plan for all or some of the unpermitted activity. So essentially you would be modifying the order to require ongoing monitoring for 5 years. And I think we should clarify whether this is year one, report one, or if you're kind of that 5 year window, for 5 years with invasive management or until activity under permit IW number 240902 starts, whichever is sooner.
Jamie, this is Commissioner Boda. So the activity for that particular permit, it's a phased permit, right?
Correct.
And what phase would this portion of the property be impacted?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. That's a good point. I believe it is the second phase. I'm going off the top of my head, but my notes here, my recommendation was monitoring reports shall be submitted at each growing season until permitted mitigation work per IW 240902 starts. So you could link it specifically to the mitigation work rather than simply start at the permit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is Doug Anderson, the developer of the project. Maybe I could just give you a little overview of where we are, and I'm looking at the plan now. So more or less that restoration starts within the first 2 phases of the project, where the initial clearing in the first phase for buildings 1 and 2, and future buildings 3 and 4. That kind of all happens initially when we get into the site to get the grading done and get the bypass of that northern wetland to the southern wetland, and then the creation of the southern portion of the northern wetland, and then the creation of the permanent detention basin prior to that. So essentially, assuming the project gets approved through planning and zoning, that all happens as kind of the first phase, first and second phase prior to the first buildings being constructed. So currently right now we are in process with the WPCA with a memorandum of understanding on the sewer for the area, and anticipate submitting to planning and zoning next month. So assuming that process goes the normal course, that's a probably 3 to 4 month endeavor, which puts us kind of towards the end of the year, anticipating possibly beginning that second phase at the end of the year, first of the year, and into the spring of 2026. So just as an overview of the project dynamics, when you're looking at that, essentially that would supersede, assuming it's approved, supersede the any additional plantings or restoration that would need to occur based on the permit that was approved that has that restoration and, construction as part of that plan.
Thank you for that, Mr. Anderson. This is Commissioner Boda. Do we have a commissioner who is ready to amend the cease and correct?
This is Commissioner Begemon with some help from my friends. I will make a motion that we uphold and modify cease and correct order 240701 to continue 1 and 2 and to change number 3 to require ongoing monitoring and management of invasive species, especially Phragmites, with yearly reports, with the first being May 2025 for 5 years. Or 5 years, or until the permitted mitigation work for inland wetlands 240902 starts. And it's whichever comes first. Is that correct? Okay.
Great. Thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Commissioner Goklowski, I'll second that motion.
Thank you. All right. We have a motion on the table. Are there questions about the motion itself?
Or comments?
Sorry?
Or comments, discussion in general.
You can't discuss the motion. Okay, hearing none, take a roll call vote. Commissioner Begeman.
Commissioner Begemon, aye.
Commissioner Glukowski.
Commissioner Goklowski, aye.
Commissioner Mirsky.
Commissioner Mirsky, aye.
Commissioner Papantonis.
Commissioner Papantonis, aye.
Commissioner Meinson.
Commissioner Meinson, aye.
And Commissioner Boda, aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Anderson and Mr. Logan and Commissioner Begeman for your very clear motion.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Enjoy your vacation.
Thank you. I've got a few more days. Thanks.
Thanks, George. Bye.
All right, next up, E, cease and correct 240903, 20 Huntington Drive. Grading and vegetation removal, understory within 100 feet of a wetland.
Amy Frederick and the wetland agent. I'd recommend we discuss this also with the notice of violation, item F, notice of violation and cease and correct order number 220601, 20 Huntington Drive, regulated activities without a permit. Looking at our participants, it does not appear that we have the property owner on the call. That being said, I think it's worth moving forward with an update. So in regards to item E, cease and correct order 240903, that order was issued because there was some clearing within the 100-foot upland review area without any permits. Subsequent to issuing the order, an application was submitted and reviewed and approved. The site has been vegetated and is stable. The area in question was revegetated with a conservation seed mix. I will admit there seems to be a decent amount of mugwort mixed in. That being said, there's a decent amount of mugwort on site in general. And I think to successfully mitigate it, they would need to disturb more of the understory, and the soil would likely become more destabilized. So I'm not sure it's worth pursuing the mugwort management in this particular case, especially since this kind of has been going in an ongoing problem site since 2019. So I think asking for more activities might potentially cause more setbacks. So let me just pull up. Sorry, I closed out my file folder. Let me pull up some pictures of what the site looks like. And unless the commission feels that the site should be managed for the invasives, my recommendation would be to lift cease and correct order 240903 because the site has been stabilized. All right, so this is the disturbed area. You can see the silt fence at the limit of the disturbance. I say if you look real close, you might see some of the wetland signs, but I don't think so because everything's grown in so densely. But the wetland was about 35 feet away from the wetland or from the silt fence. There's a small pile of disturbance still, but I don't think it's of significant nature relative to the wetland area. And here's our mugwort. And then this is the area that was disturbed that is further away from the wetland that they planted with lawn seed mix. So any thoughts or feedback from commissioners? I'm hoping that some of that is goldenrod. I couldn't really make it down there very easily because I didn't want to cut through the heavily understoried wooded area, and there's a fence for the pool here, so it was difficult to get further back on set.
You didn't want to get covered in ticks?
That too. Ticks are really bad this season.
There's a little bit of jewel weed.
Yeah.
This is Commissioner Gorkowski, Jamie. When were these pictures taken recently?
Yes, these pictures were taken on June 6th. Or sorry, June 10th. In preparation for our June 11th meeting that we ended up canceling.
It's really kind of vegetative.
That's from the commission?
This Commissioner Begemon, so the intent for this area that's been revegetated is just to let it grow. It's not going to be managed as a meadow or anything.
I don't specifically
remember.
recall. I think there may have been discussion about, I think maybe the permit conditions from the permit that was issued indicated that it could be mowed like a meadow. I don't know that it required it, but basically provided some guidance to make sure that it's not maintained as a lawn. Granted, I mean, there definitely is some other, like you can see some jewelweed. I think I see a little bit of aster. So, the question is whether it gets shaded out by the mugwort or not. And like I said, I do think there's some goldenrod mixed in there too. It's difficult from this distance to distinguish goldenrod and mugwort this time of year without seeing the underside of the leaves. But
Does anyone on the commission object to lifting the cease and correct? Or would anyone like to make a motion to uphold and or modify it?
The permit, just so everyone knows, that area to be seeded with conservation mix shall be mowed no greater than 1 to 2 times per year at a height of 4 to 6 inches to prevent establishment of undesirable woody vegetation. We won't have multi-floor roads.
Yeah, so with the permit, then we don't really need the cease and correct.
Jamie Frederick and a wetland agent, that would be my advice. Yeah.
Does anybody up for this is Commissioner Bowe? Is anybody up for making a motion to lift the cease and correct?
For clarification, specifically CC number 240903.
Yeah.
It's Commissioner Vagaman. I'll make a motion that we lift cease and correct in the number 240903 20 Huntington Drive.
Commissioner Murski, I second.
Awesome, thank you. All right, are there any questions on the motion?
No.
Great, hearing none. We'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Begeman?
Commissioner Vagaman, aye.
Commissioner Glukowski?
Commissioner Goklowski, aye.
Commissioner Murski?
Commissioner Murski, aye.
Commissioner Papantonis?
Commissioner Papantonis, aye.
Commissioner Meinson?
Commissioner Meinson, aye.
And Commissioner Boda, aye. Thank you. Commissioner Begeman for making the motion and Murski for the second. Motion carries, and we don't need to do anything with the notice of violation, right?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, I'll just provide a quick update. So the notice of violation is notice of violation and cease and correct order 220601. 220601 was upheld and modified and filed on the land records. We do have 2 outstanding things with that. One is as-built survey showing the wetland location, which we have received. So that's 1 check mark. And then the other one is 3 years of monitoring after planting. Planting occurred last fall. So this will be off of the agenda until those 3 years of monitoring have been completed, hopefully, and hopefully I'll be bringing it back in approximately just over 2 years, suggesting release of this order as well.
Great. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Commissioner Bodo, we're going to go to cease and correct 240902, 170 to 182 Leeds Island Road, clearing and earth disturbance without a permit. Continuation of show cause hearing.
Amy Frederick and the wetland agent, just bear with me for a minute as I find my file folder.
Just something nice to look at.
All right. So since our last meeting on this topic, I have met with the property owner and his soil scientist out on site. We had a bit of a conversation. We've received some revised materials. Some details I was hoping for haven't been submitted, but we'll walk through it and see if the commission is satisfied with the information available to proceed. We did just receive a report from the soil scientists today, which I was able to take a quick look at. I'm gonna pull some stuff up. Have it queued up and ready. So I think we're gonna start. So kind of to backtrack, I'll give a brief overview, walk through things, and then we'll hear from the property owner and his soil scientist. Cease and correct order was issued back in September. Kind of had off and on discussions. There's some activities that sounded like they may have been agricultural or silvicultural related. So it was suggested that if the property owner felt that was the case, he submit a jurisdictional ruling request for those activities and come up with a mitigation plan for any impacts that maybe didn't fall under anything that could be classified as of right or exempt. So we have received a jurisdictional ruling request. And then, like I said, today we received a report from the soil scientist that touched on kind of remediating some of the direct wetland impact, basically removing any stone that was placed in the wetland area, putting in a little bit of topsoil, and seeding it with wetland vegetation. So I'm gonna, unless the commission wants more of a backstory, I'm gonna jump into the jurisdictional ruling request and then let the property owner add any additional details or clarify. Actually, before I jump to the jurisdictional ruling request, this is a survey that was filed on the land records, kind of showing the overall property and the wetlands as delineated back in, I want to say 2015, approximately 2015. 2016. Project narrative. So jurisdictional ruling request indicated as of right. Specifically, subsection 1 and 4 is the attached information. So that the property owner provided a narrative of the information. Hopefully everyone had a chance to look at this. We did receive this a little while back. I think I'm going to actually, since I don't think anyone wants to sit here and necessarily read through it right now, like I said, hopefully everyone got to take a look at it before. I'm going to jump to the site plan and maybe have the property owner kind of provide an overview. And I will just start off by saying one thing I was looking for clarification on that I haven't received yet, and hopefully Mr. Onofrio, you can touch base on, is what does this cross-hatched area here and here mean on the site plan?
You want me to answer that now?
Yeah, so yeah, if you can give a brief overview of what this map is showing in regards to jurisdictional ruling request and agricultural activities, that'd be great.
Okay, so it's as is drawing, all the basically the white area there that's listed as wooded is the trees, and the area denoted for the stone area is like the bluish, I guess, color you want to call that. And then we have the delineation lines, as you can see, and there were two of them. There was one previously done, and then we were able to get deeper down based on season and methods, and we came up with a more precise one. Jamie's been out there. We walked through that as well. That other line that you can see, it's kind of more of a straight line, but there's a it says 12-inch CMP on the left near the driveway parallel. That's that conduit pipe, and that's all the base layers on that drawing. I know I hand drew in some of those other areas, but that's all to scale. That's all based off of an original A2 survey. So everything coming off of there, that's how I was able to kind of geographic locate that stuff. Plus, in addition to an application on the phone and a handheld GPS locator. And so with all those things, I went off of that. The areas in the X mark there, those are areas outside of the wetland area, but there's stone there's additional overflow of some stone and there's trees there as well. So I just want to show that visually for you guys as well. So there is a little bit more of an overlap on there. When just moving around materials, there was stone originally in that little gully there. That was the original waterway years ago, and it was a natural drainage. I don't know if everyone remembers that. And then since there's been water, it's been redirected, and a lot of things changed in there over the time. And there's water from the town or the street. They piped in underground, at least to that one catch basin there, and they just dumped it onto the property. And that had made another new waterway, and that's going parallel with the road and then coming up the sides. And in the past, that's flooded because of nobody was taking care of it. But yeah, that's basically the layout there on the one side. So I'm gonna have all the maple syrup trees, everything's staying as it is. I'm gonna harness that maple syrup. It's basically all maples there. I mean, predominantly all maples there. That front apron there, it's already growing back pretty well with the vegetation. Some of the story was cut just in an attempt to clean everything up and make sure there was no more continued flooding, which in the past, as I mentioned in past meetings, that caused damage to the other neighbors. And one of my parents who live in the back property were one of them. So that's kind of, and then in the front, I was going to harness, replant native pollinating flowers to also, and put some beehive enclosures in there so I could actually do some honey as well in there. So I thought that would be a nice way to maintain the natural landscape and also, harvest some honey, which I think would be a great spot for that. So if there's any, let me know if you guys have any questions or clarifications. I'd be happy to walk you through it.
Amy Frederick and the wetland agent. I have a couple of questions and then I'll let commissioners ask. So in regards to these cross-hatched areas, the areas where there's some stone amongst trees, but not areas that you're specifically planning to maintain as an access drive. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Exactly. I'm not going to cut anything down. There's nothing more getting cut down. There's no plans to cut anything down. All the dead stuff and all the disease stuff, dangerous things, and have all been already addressed previously. And that's all I was trying to do in the first place, was just clean it up. There's no plans to develop it. There's no plans to do any more cutting or filling or anything else like that. So that's where I'm at now. Just want to maintain it. Want the property to actually maintain privacy. For my family in the back, we have 3 acres in the back lot. I grew up there my whole life, and they're still there. Actually, they still live back there.
Good evening, Mr. Onofrio. Commissioner Goklowski here. We were saying these X marks on your drawing here is basically a gully type scenario.
Not even. I would just say it's a little bit of overflow from the actual carved out pathway that I made in there to navigate through there, for future use to get in there. And it was basically just, I followed the natural kind of contour things. There was piles of stone there. There was piles of fill. It was a farm. There was imported soils at one point. It was, a lot of hay was harvested out of there and other things over the years. We have actually aerial photography of that stuff. I have historicals dating back to.
So the beehive enclosures, are they going to be outside the wetlands or inside the wetlands?
So that technically would be in the wetlands, but it's not. So it's not the wetlands, right? So it's wetlands because it's categorized as poorly drained, right? So it meets the criteria of, yes, wetlands. But as far as underneath it, it's natural. The only thing there's no stone in that area. It's not an area like there is a corner of that parcel near the driveway and Lee Sound Road on the bottom left corner, which would be like the, I guess, northwest right there. There it does get sloppy in there, and that's still wooded. That still has its own vegetation there. I'm not messing with any of that. It's funny. It's actually kind of interesting. Since the water, and what also George was there originally when he looked at this, and so was the new gentleman Sipperly, who I think is online here. But sediment actually built up over the years from the water getting expelled from the street, from the other side of the road. There's a catch basin, water went in, and it almost looks like it's built up because that's a higher platform right there. So you have the only real subdued areas are going to be, parallel with that. There's a trough parallel with the road. That's where the water, when it does flow, that's where it's going to go. But it gets stuck in that driveway area.
I understand that you're looking for us to allow you to work inside the
non-invasive stuff. There's no curbing, there's no footings. You know what I mean? It just sits. They just sit on top of the ground, and and then the flowers are there for them to pollinate. And my goal is to have different times of year. You have different flowers that bloom at different times of the year, and I try to harness that in the three different times of the year, if possible. But and that's the plan, And then obviously, we spoke about that area that does overlap there in the yellow that's coming over there. I don't have a problem if you guys would like to see that return back. I mean, to me, it just kind of was a little bit of overlap, an over area of the original landscape there and the way it was. And I'm like I said, I followed the certain contour and the certain rhythm of the land. That's the same thing. That's why the driveway came out the way it did. Not only because you have room to move around in there if you have to get a truck in there to cut a dead tree way up in the in the sky or something like that. You got to have some access in there, and that's the access, and everything else is going to be left untouched as it is.
I think Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. I'm going to try and provide a little bit more orientation context for commissioners as a quick kind of step back. This dashed line here represents the approximate location of the wetlands as delineated by George Logan. And then this dashed line that's kind of blue with different length dashes is the line that was delineated by Sipperly.
Right, and we had different methods because at the time we were able to, we utilized a small tractor to make the test pits. The second time around, the other time around, everyone was kind of just following where the tree line was there, and that's where the trees were. So we, as you saw, Jamie, we made several holes over there, and that's what it was. And I know the history of the land too. If you look back at all the, and you've showed them in the past, Jamie, the soil classifications, the aerials. Nothing's ever even spiked up as wetlands except for a little bit on the southern part there. But it was farmland. That's the best area of the farm area. Anywhere up north on the eastern part of the property, which is the top of the page, that's all ledge. It's all granite in there, so it's not gonna be much conditions to do the beehives anywhere else. They're out of the area. They're not to be disturbed. They're on the back. There's no road going into the property right now. I'm utilizing, till further notice, I'm utilizing an access from my parents' driveway. So it's not like I'm going to be driving through there or trucking through there. It's going to be on the outskirts of the property.
Commissioner Goklowski again, Mr. Nofield. So the blue shaded area is currently gravel stone, right?
It's, yeah, crushed stone, granite, yep.
Crushed stone. Okay, so you have crushed stone in the wetlands area right now.
The only crushed stone, the only overflow is that yellow area.
Well, I see I'm looking at the delineation line that is on here, and it shows. Maybe I'm reading this wrong, um, but where you have it on the bottom part, I see blue area, and blue area constitutes the crushed stone, and then the dotted line is supposed to be the inland's the line.
Right. So
Yeah.
there was three. There was is James still on the line, or did he?
Yeah, of course he is.
Lose him? I think we might have lost him. He was on the phone.
I don't see him on the.
Then from the 860 number. He must have lost service or phone died or something. So he came. I had him come back because I was looking into this drainage ordeal and the water coming in here, and he was, he's on a drainage and committee and everything else for the town of Middletown, and that's why I started talking to him on that. And then, it kind of made sense once we were able to dig and open up these things that he redelineated this. He spoke to George on the phone about this, and they both agreed it was a difficult site to do because of the stone. I was the one with George originally. I was digging the holes for him, trying to do the best I could with a shovel and a pickaxe. And let's just say that the next time or the next round that we did the second delineation, it was done the right way. It wasn't done like that. So it was more precise, So so what you're looking at, I left them both on the page, so there was no confusion. You have the original one in black, and then the other one are in light blue. So I just left them both on there because I want to.
So Jamie Frederick, Inland Wetland Agent. Let me kind of go back and give that overview, and just bear with me because I'm going to be switching between some things, and I might pause, but just try and let me run through it so that way I can get all the information out. Okay. So here's a GIS map showing the subject site, Leeds Island Road. You can't really see it, but there's a wetland south of this driveway, and there's a culvert that discharges, that flows onto this property. And then there is a storm drain that flows in, and then there's a culvert that flows under these driveways through a pipe north to another wetland area. So if you look, well, 1 minute. If you look at the survey that the property owner used as their kind of baseline, it looks like the water from that culvert may have initially kind of traveled through the center of what the wetland was delineated at the time, because George Logan's wetland delineation largely follows the wetland delineation from that map. When I was on site, it does look like the main flow of water, stormwater through the wetlands, kind of follows the property lines now. Generally speaking, I mean, it curves around. It's not on the property line, but it kind of curves, comes to the front of the property. The flow from the storm system goes into that ditch and connects to this over here. So it's possible that the main flow of water has changed through the site a bit. I believe George Logan, maybe separately as well, touched on it. It looks like there is some casting material that may have been piled kind of in this area from maybe maintaining that flow before the flow was rerouted at one point. And there does appear to be kind of a high point in this area. And by high point, I mean it's a couple inches higher. It's not like it's a significant grade change. So, I mean, I don't know what the flow through the wetland is. We do have the two different wetland delineations. There's clearly no doubt about this yellow-green area. Both soil scientists agree that that is wetland area. And then I feel like there's one other thing I wanted to get. Oh, so in the aerial, you can kind of see the ditch where the storm flows are conveyed across the front of the property rather than centrally. And then when you look at the older, well, you can kind of see there, it looks like there used to be
That's it. Yeah.
a ditch also in the center. And maybe there was both. I don't know. And it's certainly when you look at the contours, which I believe these are from 2016, it looks like there was flow going through kind of that central point as well. So it is possible that movement of the flows could have changed the hydrology in the upper edge of the wetland. I don't really know. This is kind of, so that here, this doesn't line up well because it's an old aerial, 1934, but you can see Leeds Island Road. And then you can see, part of the front part of the site was undisturbed. And then the back was, back/central portion does appear to have been used historically as a field type usage. And this is kind of a further out view showing the wetland to the south, which does flow this direction to the north, culvert flowing into the wetland, and the piped section of flow discharging to the wetland to the north, just for general overall context. So I am going to step back and take a quick moment while I have the floor to mention two questions I have mentioned previously with the property owner. The area identified for native pollinating flowers is already vegetated. Are you planning on removing vegetation to establish something else, or are you identifying that there's vegetation there already that pollinating species would access?
I'm not a professional with I know what flowers look like, right? But I'm not a professional when it comes to what's been growing in. I don't want invasive stuff to grow in, obviously, but I do want to vegetate that area to keep it, for pollinating purposes, obviously 100%. So you tell me, I'm open to recommendations as far as that goes. I wouldn't mind getting a nice, like I said, a nice staggered flow of pollinating plants in there. I'm recommendations.
Yeah, the commission doesn't provide recommendations or come up with plans.
Yeah.
They review proposals. So my concern is, like I said, there's already vegetation there. I don't recall what was there. I didn't do a full investigation. I'm also not the best person to do that survey. So I would say that area shouldn't be touched because it's vegetated and it's a wetland. If you wanted to go in there and change it, we would need something from your soil scientist or botanist addressing how you're planning to do that and what you're planning to do. Like, what are you planning to plant? Are you going to remove vegetation? Are you going to bring in topsoil or organic matter? Like, all those things we would need to know to be able to review that activity.
Right.
So
I believe James said he did email you after getting that email, the type.
Yes. So he emailed me something that would pertain to this green, yellow, whatever color you want to call this area, but not anything for this area.
Okay, I think that's probably would be the same stuff. As far as the farming right to farm on there, if I put down some native species for pollinating, and then from what I have read in regulations and everything else they have for guidance documents from the state and what's available, is that you're allowed to, I would like to do whatever works now to appease everyone, but also that's going to work for the farming as well. So that's what it looks like. That was like a month ago.
Right. So this is already vegetated. So that's my concern.
Right.
Are you planning on removing that to put something else in?
You probably have to, right?
Well, we would need to know what it is you're planning to put in there and how you're planning to put it in.
Yep.
So I would say that part the vegetated part of the wetland needs to stay untouched unless you bring specific,
Yeah.
unless you bring specific plans in. So the plan that's separately submitted is for the area of the wetland where the stone is currently that is being proposed to be removed. So basically, Sipperly's plan.
I would think it would be the same mix of stuff, what we would be doing. You know, would it make sense after in the fall when everything kind of dies off again, and then you just plant something? Because these are things, I thought these are the things, the farming things, like the tilling at the end of a season and the, you know, of the soil and this. I thought those were all things that kind of fell, that were kind of, unsaid, other than I understand the distinction of what species you want in there. I get that. But as far as bringing anything in, taking anything out, maybe just by hand, pulling up a section, squaring off like by hand, like you're in your garden. And I pull up those dead section that where I'm gonna have sunlight and I'm gonna get, the flowers in. And I understand you need to see that in a plan.
We need to see a plan of where you're doing it, how you're doing it, what you're doing. And that's the case with any agricultural activity. I mean, we've had like pepper farms in the past. Like we need an actual plan showing what it is you want to do.
I'll stake out
also, that seed mix that is let me finish. That seed mix that is being proposed along the wetland edge. Yeah. I am sure that some of that vegetation is already in the area that you've called out for pollinator plants in the wetland. That's already there. You don't want to go in and disturb it. No. And we had discussed in the field that a lot of like the pollinator plants that you might look up and see when you look up, pollinators, they're predominantly going to be upland plants. They're not going to be wetland plants. So you want to make sure you're going to plant something that will do well in the area that you're planting it. So we really need more information if you're looking to alter the existing vegetation. But I do also think there's some vegetation there already that pollinators would access.
Would be okay. Yeah.
So I would say there's not enough information to approve any changes in that area at this time. But if you, in the future wanted to, we would just need a new jurisdictional ruling request that provided the information of what you were going to do and how you were going to do it.
Okay.
Because right now, it doesn't make sense to just go in there and change it.
I hear you.
And then the other question I had is in regards to the beehives. I had asked kind of the extent of that project. Like how many hives are you looking to put in there? How big are they? Are you planning on putting any sort of access to the hives, or are you going to leave it natural vegetation?
Yeah. Okay. So you want more specifics on everything, basically, on real specific on what's going to go on in there. So, I mean, I'm going to have a natural walking path. I'm not going to excavate it. I'm not going to put pavers in, you know what I mean? It's going to be natural excavation path. I mean, walking path, no stone. I'm going to go into there. They're not curbed by any means. They're not built in.
So, Mr. Onofrio, this is Commissioner Boda. All of the things that you're saying out loud in words have to be on a plan that we can see and review in detail so that we can, based on the details in the plan, make a determination or ask you for additional information.
Right. Even I was just a little caught off guard because of the, just the use of as a farm kind of thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's a weird exemption, but yeah.
And the commission does have the right to request information to review the proposed activities in the context of as of right.
This is Commissioner Goklowski. I'm a little confused. I thought we were looking at this as just maple. He was farming maple trees. When did the bees come into play? That was my question.
I kind of want to just utilize it as much as I can. I'm not gonna get rich from making maple syrup, and that's not the point.
Mr. Onofrio, when you come to us, we'd love to help you, but we can't help you if you keep changing things.
Well, I've discussed this for months. I mean, I don't know how much you read or not, what gets submitted. I know it's not detailed like these last ones with the old movie theater, but this has been on the table. So I have discussions. I don't know how much you guys have discussions about this project in particular, but I have had, this isn't overnight. I didn't just put this in overnight. And I don't think it's an unreasonable thing to have in there. I'm learning as I go. I'm
Yeah.
a fellow citizen. I'm bumping into you guys. We're all going to bump into each other one day or not. And it was Karen's Corner or Stop and Shop or whatever. I'm not trying to get anything over on you here. I've been going through this. I'm trying to do
Mr.
everything.
Nofrio, it's certainly it's a lot. It's a lot of detail. I certainly understand. It's confusing. We certainly appreciate your time and energy, and I think it's valuable to have property that's in town that is being used for farming. I think the commission isn't in a position that we can make a decision based on the information that we have. And Jamie has got some great guidance on how to help you move forward. And so I think also, given that it's 9:50, and this is the hour where everybody starts to get a little.
I know. Okay.
Everybody's been at work. It's a long day for everybody. I know it's tricky, and I appreciate your patience and as we get it all figured out. Okay. Jamie, do you think that you're able to work with Mr. Onofrio for the next couple of details to help him kind of cross the finish line if he's able?
Yeah, so I did send an email, I think on June 12th. And I know it looks like a lot. I was trying to break it out into little individual steps. I'm more than happy to meet with you again in the office if that would be helpful.
Right. And then also on that letter, remember I broke it down kind of. I found something somewhere because there's no guidance documents on this, or there's no model plan, which in my line of work with my environmental stuff that I do, there's always some sort of reference like that. But with that being said, did you see like all the things I put into those question and answers that no one asked me?
And I did. I read through this, and I was impressed. And you've made huge strides since the last time we met and talked with the commission about this. I think that there's just some details missing, and like I said, like for the pollinator area, we need more details. If you're looking to swap out the vegetation there, how are you planning to do that? For the beehives, it looks like you started to provide some information. You've got the site map, and then you've got honeybee information, and then there's no next page.
Yeah.
So
just traditional, but yeah.
I mean, I don't know how many of the commissioners are really familiar with the beehive process. Like, how big is a beehive? How many beehives are you planning on putting in there? That's all the information that they're going to need. Like 3 beehives is significantly different than 30 beehives.
Right.
So
question and answer things that I just feel we're just talking about it now. You know what I mean? So like, if there's a list of specific things you want, just tell me and I'll hit them. You know what I mean?
Well, I double checked that email. I was probably emotional when you got it because you did put a lot of work into this, and to get hit with like, these are the details that I'm still looking for, probably, wasn't a great feeling. Yeah. So I'd say take another look at it. If it's still confusing, or if you want to touch base to make sure you're hitting everything and that we don't end up with another back and forth, I'm more than happy to meet with you again. And then hopefully we can be able to review all of the activities comprehensively and get this finalized, and, not a thing that you have to worry about, or the commission has to worry about, and get your sap harvesting and bee hives, potentially moving forward. Okay. So our next meeting is July 10th. Is that a reasonable amount of time, do you think, for you to try and work out those that information?
I think so, yes.
You got the 10th and the 20th.
The good news is
yeah,
we don't have a whole lot on our agenda, so we should be able to get to you earlier.
Don't say that.
Hey,
don't say that.
At this point, applications can only be for receipt.
Okay, all right, but still.
Nice to be quick.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Onofrio.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thanks, you too. All right, Jamie, you're going to tear through these, right?
Yeah.
Like really fast. You have
All
4
right.
minutes. I'm going to turn into pumpkin.
Other business, none. Applications for receipt, none. Agent approvals, IW 250502, 7 Valley Road Septic System, brought to the commission, they okayed for agent review. IW 250601, 2 and 4 Commercial Street, excavation for remediation. There's previous contaminated soils adjacent to the foundation that they're looking to remove and properly dispose of. All work will be overseen by an LEP. IW 250602, 214 Alps Road, expansion of deck along the back of the unit, not getting any closer to the pond, which definitely has been altered as part of the development of the project or the condo development. Any questions?
Nope.
Thank you, everybody. Is there a motion to adjourn?
There's a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second. Second.
You got that, Katie? That was Kokowski and Papatonis.
Good night.
Yep, got it. All in favor?
Good night, everybody.
Thank you,
Thanks for
everyone.
sharing,
Good night.
Suzanne.
Good to have you back.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Branford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BranfordTV.org.